Sail the seas of New England to catch the most fish. This is our review of Fisheries of Gloucester.
Fisheries of Gloucester is a two-player action points game about catching the most fish. It's a simple game with a lot of depth.
It's a game that's easy to learn and quick to play. However, the mechanics and theme didn't really catch my interest. We'll tell you all about it after this quick how to play. The game is played over 6 rounds, with players taking turns until they run out of actions or until they pass.
On their turn, players may spend time or action points to chart a course, sail, fish, or preserve fish.
When a player charts a course, they'll place ocean tiles on the shared board, which will allow their ships to move.
Once there are ocean tiles, players can then sail with their boats to new locations.
When players are in position, they can catch the different colored fish and add them to their player board.
Once a player has caught fish, they may preserve them by trading them in for cards with endgame points.
After each player runs out of time or both players pass, the round ends. After 6 rounds, the game ends.
Players add up points from the helm icons on their cards and the islands they landed on. The player with the most points wins.
We were sent a copy of the game from the publisher so that we could do this review video.
If you'd like to find out more information or to buy a copy of the game, check out the links in our description below.
This is another game from Dr. Finn's Games. We've played a lot of them over the past year or so, and we really enjoyed a lot of those games. This one didn't really capture my attention as much as the other ones. I think the theme just isn't that exciting to me. Fishing isn't like my big thing. I'm not a big fishing person, even though we live in Florida. I like the concept of moving around the board and playing the ocean tile and moving there. I just didn't really like that you had to go to a spot, pick up the fish, and then you trade in the fish for the different cards. And it's kind of recipe fulfillment with the fish because you need either one certain color, 2 of the same color, 3 of the same color, 4 different colors, things like that.
Thematically, I would say it gets extra points for me, or I liked it a little bit more just because everything did seem to flow. I mean, the little meeples here, or this is a little lobster, you got fish, you got boats, and then even just the action points, which is time, and your little marker is an hourglass. So, I mean, fishing does take a lot of time, so I'm glad this wasn't like a really time-intensive game, but they use time to kind of go with the theming. So I really like that. Also not a huge fishing fan, but still, I could scratch that itch. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I fished.
One of the mechanics of the game is a tile placement. You're going to be placing ocean tiles, and you have to place those so that your boats can move. So there are certain spots where your boats can go. They can go in the rough sea locations, which are already on the board, or you can place rough sea tiles if you're playing the board that you kind of design yourself on the flip side of the board. But you will be placing the normal sea tiles out, and then you can move around them. And then you can move forwards, backwards, left, and right. And I like that there's the different shapes, so you can move them like this and move like this. And I also like that you're placing the tiles on a shared board. So even though you may place a tile so that your boat can move forward, you're also placing a tile so that your opponent's boat can also move forward. And that can add some interesting maneuvering based on how that player wants to move. Because you can't end on the same location as another boat, but you can pass through it if you use extra time. So just because someone's blocking you, as long as they're not blocking the last location, you can jump in front of them. And if they may have more time, maybe they were planning on moving their boat somewhere and catching some fish and using all their time to get lots of fish, but you don't have that much time, you can jump in front of them, use what little time you have left, and then block them from being able to go after those fish. So I do like the strategy that is involved with the tile placement of the 2-player game and having to move your boats around the tiles that are then placed on the board.
I really did like that mechanic of kind of the path builder, because if you started building a path and then I'm like, ugh, do I want to go on that path? But then I have to go vertical or down, and that kind of takes away from moving across, like to get further on. So I really did like that because it makes you choose, like, all right, am I going to try and just waste the time to jump them? Or do I build my own path and maybe go after something that might be worth more because I can see he's clearly going after something else?
That mechanic does bring up a negative for me, which happens a lot in 2-player games, which is I think it would be even better if it wasn't a 2-player game, if there were a 3 or 4-player game, because the back and forth nature of it makes it, if I play that ocean tile, I know my opponent's probably going to try to jump me. Maybe he won't and he'll do a different strategy, but likely he'll probably try to jump me. Whereas if it was 3 players, you always have that, well, he may try to jump me, but then someone else is going to go after him So it's not like he's going to get the benefit either. So someone else can also cut in front of him and things, a lot more maneuvering can happen. So I think that tile placement mechanic would have worked even better in a multiplayer game more than 2 players.
Another thing to call out is we each get 3 boats. So it's almost like you're a commander of a fleet, like a fishing fleet. So you're like, all right, am I going to send these after the fish I need? Or am I going to invest more in this path? So I like the little decision making there. But I mean, yeah, I guess more players could have been added. We each could have gotten 2 boats. And then so 3 people could have played. So that might have made it a bit more interesting. I mean, it still played well for the 2-player game.
The main board comes double-sided, as I was saying earlier, where one side has the rough seas and the islands already printed on the board, and then the other side has tiles that you can place out there to kind of design your own board. And I could see that adding a little bit of variety to the game as you're playing. However, I don't think it's enough variety to make me want to keep playing the game.
At first glance, I really like the idea of the other side of the board where it's just open and then you can place and design. My only qualm with that is like, did we design it in a way that like
was
favorable to the other person, or like, no, clearly I lost, so this wasn't done favorably. You know what I mean? Like, I'd always think about that. So I wonder, did they have other suggestions? Like, oh, if you want to design, here's some other like permutations you could do.
No, it's just more just kind of just do your own thing. I'm sure they can probably on their website, or they may come out with expansions.
There's probably forums and stuff where like you could do.
Yeah, a lot of it is just choose. But yeah, it is did I lean heavily this way? Well, where do you start your boat? Well, yeah.
There is one mechanic in this game that I'm usually on the fence on about other games too. So it's this lobster. This lobster you can only use it once per game, and you just take an additional move. So not so much the taking an additional move, it's just I have to now decide like, oh, do I use it now? Do I use it at the end? When's the most optimal time? And like the first couple times of playing, like you won't really know. So I think that's why like I'm not a fan of okay, you get this one thing, use it wisely. And it's like, the dilemma, like I don't know when. I would say it's a little path builder because it's like a co-op but competitive path builder. So there were times where you dropped a path down and I'm like, I know what you're doing. And that was so good that you're blocking me like that. So I would say that one really makes me think, but also like, daggers.
I really like the tile placement path building as well, but I'll choose something different. I really like how the theme applies to the game. Even though I didn't like the theme, I'm not a big fishing person, whatever, I do feel like it applied. As Lee said, fishing takes a lot of time, and time is your main resource that you're spending in the game. There's different fish you're collecting, and the different fish you turn them in, and you get money, that kind of stuff. So I thought the theme was appropriate for the game, even though it didn't grab me. If you like fishing games, you may want to check this one out. What did you dislike about the game?
I'm probably just repeating myself, but basically the lobster. I don't like having to decide like that one time where it could be not that meaningful or it could be a game changer. I don't like having to look for like that one time in the game.
The biggest thing I didn't like about the game is this initiative card. And I like how you get it, which is if you're the first player to pass, you get to choose if you're going to go first or second in the next round. But if you go second, you get more time. And after playing the game enough, I feel like more time is even more of an advantage than going first. So I feel like this isn't very even and they needed to come up with something better. And I understand you need to outweigh the going first, but I just feel like they could have done better than this.
Overall, I really enjoyed the production and the theming of it, how it all tied together. In terms of a 2-player game, not usually a big fan, but I did have a lot of fun playing this. However, when replayability comes in, I don't know if this is going to be one of those that like comes to the forefront of my mind of 2-player games. So I'll probably give this a 5.
Overall, I thought the theming was good for people who would like that type of theming. It wasn't for me, but that's okay. Although I did appreciate some of the mechanics. I like that tile placement. I wish it would have been more than a 2-player game. So there's things that I like, things that I don't like. It's kind of a wash, so I'm going to give it a 5. And that was our review of Fisheries of Gloucester.
What'd you think? You ready to reel this game into your game night? Let us know in the comments below.
Once again, we'd like to thank Dr. Finn's Game for sending us a copy so that we could do this review video. If you'd like to find out more or buy a copy, check out the links in our description below. And as always, if you're enjoying our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny. I go party like a board gamer.